The glass tower caught the morning sun and threw it back at the city, a monolith of money and silence. Ethan Cross stepped through the revolving door, a man built to be forgotten. 48, clean-shaven, hair the color of weathered concrete. He wore a navy windbreaker over a grey polo, charcoal trousers, boots that were practical, not tactical. The logo on his tablet case read, Cross Compliance and Safety Inspection. The lobby was a cathedral of quiet wealth. Marble floors, a wall of living moss, the soft hum of climate control. He approached the security desk. Ethan Cross, Fire Safety Audit, penthouse level. His voice was flat, a neutral instrument. The guard, young and bored, slid a digital pad across the granite. Sign here, visitor badge, elevator C, keycard activated. Ethan signed and let his gaze drift to the monitors behind the desk. 16 feeds filled the wall, lobby views, the garage, service corridors. On feed 7, 2 men in tailored suits stood near the service elevators. They stayed in place, watching the screens as the footage cycled. Private security, too still, too focused on the system. He took the badge, turned. His gait was economical, his shoulders level despite the old familiar ache in the left one. A reminder from a different life that overhead reach wasn't a guarantee. Elevator C chimed. The doors slid shut and the world became a silent, ascending box. He watched the floor numbers climb, mentally mapping the shaft against the building schematics he'd reviewed last night. Stairwell access points, service panel locations, potential choke points. The penthouse foyer was a smaller, richer version of the lobby. A single door of reinforced dark wood. A man in a cheap suit fidgeted beside it. The facilities manager, according to the file. Mr. Cross? Yes. Thank you for coming on such short notice. It's the panic room. Insurance renewal. Needs the certification stamp. The manager's eyes danced away, landing on his phone. He checked the screen, swiped it off. Understood. Lead the way. Actually, the manager said, swallowing. Procedure. You have to go in alone. Owner's privacy policy. I'll lock the main door behind me. For security while you work. Just use the panic room's intercom when you're done. He pushed the heavy door open. It's all set up for you. Please, be quick. The owner could be back early. The red flags were small but bright. No escort, no digital logs. Rush job. Ethan gave a single nod and stepped inside. The penthouse was largely empty. Floor-to-ceiling windows lined the outer wall, their automated shades drawn closed despite the daylight outside. A minimalist sofa sat opposite the windows. A leather suitcase lay open on a Barcelona chair, half-packed. Near a sleek waste bin, a small pile of torn paper rested on the floor, the edges uneven. The safe room door was concealed behind a panel of the same dark wood as the wall. It clicked open at his touch, swinging inward on silent, heavy hinges. Ethan stepped into a space the size of a generous walk-in closet. Ballistic-rated walls, smooth and cool. A bench, an emergency water supply, a first aid kit. His professional eye began its scan. Air filtration system, HEPA and carbon scrubbers. Status light, green, but the intake gauge, it was drawing from the external building supply, not recycling internal air. Odd for a sealed environment. Independent power supply, a solid-state battery bank. Readout showed it was already active, providing 20% of room power. Why was it running before a test? A secure communications panel was mounted beside the wall. A single red button sat beneath a glass cover labeled Police. He followed the wire conduit with his eyes. It ran away from the building's main telecom spine and continued into a separate line routed along the ceiling. Ventilation. Primary vent was standard, but in the rear corner, behind the water tank, a secondary duct, narrower. A bypass leading directly into the building's service shaft, an undocumented feature. He was documenting the anomalies in his mind when the first signal came. A soft ding from somewhere in the penthouse, an elevator chime. His tablet, resting on the bench, blinked. The Wi-Fi icon went grey, then vanished. The LED lights in the ceiling flickered once, a heartbeat of instability. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. "Hold position. Do not exit." He looked up. The small, dome-shaped security camera in the corner of the safe room swiveled with a nearly imperceptible whir. It tilted down, centering on him. "Hold position. Do not exit." He looked up. The small, dome-shaped security camera in the corner of the safe room swiveled with a nearly imperceptible whir. It tilted down, centering on him. Then, with a solid, hydraulic thunk, the reinforced door slammed shut. The magnetic locks engaged like a vault seal. The ambient hum of external power cut off abruptly. The lights dimmed for a second before brightening again, now running on the internal battery. A soft amber, backup power active LED glowed on the wall. Silence. Then, from beyond the door, muffled through layers of steel and composite, low voices. The scuff of boots on penthouse flooring. A distinct metallic clack-clack, the sound of a breaching tool being assembled. Ethan remained motionless for 3 seconds, the situation settling into place. Then he moved. He did a swift, silent inventory. Water, 20-litre reserve. Vent, too small for egress, but a conduit. Fire suppression, wall-mounted CO2 canister. Toolkit, his own, on the bench. Power access panel, sealed, but standard screw heads. Asterisk. He was a man trapped in a box, and the box was part of someone else's machine. The comms panel hissed to life. A voice, digitally distorted, flat, and without region. "Inspection is complete. Remain inside. This will resolve itself." Ethan looked at the speaker grill. "You're not with the fire marshal." A pause. A different kind of silence, weighted with recalculation. Then, the voice again, a note of cold curiosity beneath the distortion. "You're not the intended occupant." The line went dead. Ethan turned to the environmental controls. The air filtration timer now displayed a red countdown. 90 minutes. Minutes of breathable air. The digital thermometer read 72 degrees Fahrenheit. As he watched, it ticked up to 73 degrees. A slow, deliberate bake. The battery readout on the wall flashed 72 minutes at current load. His tablet chimed again. A building-wide security alert pushed through before the blackout. "Unauthorized access, stairwell B, service elevator, override, investigate." The alert tracked their progress through the building. Sections were being sealed. Ethan reached into his toolkit. He selected a multi-driver, flipped to a Torx bit. Without a glance at the camera, he stepped to the wall, unscrewed the camera's housing with 4 efficient turns, and disconnected its data cable. The little red light died. He turned to the main power access panel. 4 more screws. The panel came away, revealing a nest of color-coded wires and circuit boards. He began tracing them, his mind overlaying the schematic, looking for the fault line, the pressure point. From beyond the penthouse door, a new sound. A soft thump, followed by the distinct, sticky sound of plastic explosives being set. A shaped charge. They weren't just locking him in. They were preparing to breach the outer sanctum. They don't want the room breached, he thought, his fingers hovering over a primary power conduit. They want whoever's supposed to be in here dead and untraceable. I am a flaw in their process, a complication to be sanitized. A deep, concussive boom shook the penthouse. The safe room lights dipped violently. A fine mist of dust sifted down from the seam where wall met ceiling. The comms panel crackled, the distortion now laced with interstitial noise. Final warning, stay inside. Ethan took the fire axe from its mount beside the suppression canister. The weight registered as expected. He held it steady, his gaze lifting to the narrow vent shaft in the corner. His expression remained unchanged as the room's process continued, with him still inside it. The dust settled. The room went quiet. Ethan lowered the axe, his attention moving across the room, locating leverage. The amber backup light threw hard shadows. He moved to the environmental panel. The oxygen sensor, a small digital readout he hadn't noticed before, showed a steady decline. 18.9%, 18.8%. Normal atmosphere was 21%. They were locking him in. They were slowly turning the room into a vacuum bag. The heat was pressure, the oxygen drop was the kill. His tablet chimed. A system alert popped up, styled to look like a building-wide notice. Remain inside, secure area. Emergency response en route. A pairing request flashed. Building safety diagnostic, accept. Ethan held the power button until the screen went black. He pried off the case, removed the battery. He did the same to his phone. Passive signals died. He turned to the HVAC access panel. Behind it, the ductwork was pristine except for one addition. A sleek black module spliced into the main intake pipe. A small LED glowed green. An oxygen scavenger. Professional, deniable. From the comms panel, a calm, automated female voice. For your safety, remain in place. Assistance is coming. The oxygen readout hit 17.9%. The response to his non-compliance was a turned dial. He heard the footsteps then, directly outside the safe room door, muted, deliberate. A metallic clink, a drill bit being fitted. A low electric whir began, a diamond-tipped coring drill biting into reinforced composite. The sounds aligned with an installation process. Ethan looked up, the ceiling vent, the narrow, undocumented bypass shaft. It was a vulnerability they might have missed. He dragged the bench beneath it. His shoulder protested as he reached up with the flat end of the axe head, popping the grate loose. It fell with a clatter. The shaft beyond was a square of darkness, just wide enough for his shoulders. He slung his tool bag across his chest, shoved the fire axe handle first into the duct and hauled himself up. The metal was cool. He wriggled in, pushing the axe ahead of him. It was a tight, punishing crawl. After 10 feet, his flashlight beam illuminated a junction, and there, wired into the main building air supply, was the hardware, a thermal override unit. Next to it, the oxygen deprivation module, its LED now flashing amber, active cycle. The system was failing. The comms panel hissed below, a new voice, male, calm, devoid of any emotion. You are not the intended asset. Your compliance can still adjust the outcome. Cease movement. Ethan stopped crawling. In the cramped, dark duct, his voice was flat, carrying down into the room. You picked the wrong room. Silence. Then, from the room below, a heavy thud against the door. Then another. They were ramming it. The soft kill had failed. The hard entry had begun. He pushed forward, faster. The duct made a 90-degree turn toward the building's core. He could feel a vibration. The massive central air handlers. A service shaft. He scrambled toward a dim light ahead. Another grate. He slammed the axe head against it. Once, twice. The metal screws sheared. The grate gave way. He tumbled out, not into a room, but onto a narrow metal walkway in a vast, dark utility shaft. Conduits and pipes lined the walls. The air was hot, humming with machinery. He was in the building's thoracic cavity. A hatch in the walkway floor, 10 feet away, burst open. A head and shoulders appeared. A man in dark tactical gear, no insignia. He saw Ethan, his eyes widening for a split second before his hand came up, clutching an expendable baton. Ethan didn't hesitate. He kicked out, not at the man, but at the heavy hatch door, slamming it down on the operator's forearm. A grunt of pain. The baton clattered. Ethan dropped, landing on the hatch, pinning the arm. He drove his elbow into the side of the man's exposed neck. A choked gasp. The operator went limp. Ethan yanked the man's radio from his belt and a keycard from a chest pouch. In the earpiece, faint traffic. Thermal signature moved to shaft B, confirm contact. He dragged the unconscious operator onto the walkway, took his pistol, a suppressed Glock 19, and spare mag. He was a system obstacle, now neutralized. The radio crackled, a calm, emotionless voice, the field commander. Asset is mobile, all teams, converge on shaft B, lethal force is authorized, execute blackout. The lights in the service shaft died, plunging him into absolute blackness. Then emergency strips flickered to a dim red. The hunt was now official. Ethan moved down the walkway toward a door marked Telecom Hub 42. His shoulder burned. His breath came short. The sterile clock in his head was now the only one that mattered. Oxygen in room. Critical. Hunters. Converging. Exits. Sealed. He reached the door. The stolen keycard unlocked it with a soft click. The corridor beyond was clean, silent, and empty. At the far end, 50 yards away, was the elevator bank, his path. He took 2 steps out, a shape detached from an alcove to his left. A second operator, carbine raised. "Stop! Down on the—" Ethan was already moving backward through the telecom door. He yanked the fire extinguisher from the wall, pulled the pin, and sprayed a thick cloud of white chemical fog into the corridor. He had no time to waste. He turned and ran the other way down the red-lit utility walkway, the fog billowing behind him like a ghost. The radio on his belt hissed, the field commander's voice, a razor in the dark. "You have one chance. Surrender. The alternative is asphyxiation in the dark." Ethan stopped at a junction. He looked back at the chemical haze, then ahead into the deeper darkness of the shaft. The air was already thinner, hotter. He raised the stolen pistol, its weight a cold promise. The system had declared war. He was now its error code, moving blind into the heart of the machine. The red-lit corridor pulsed with the wail of a distant alarm. Ethan pressed his back against the cold steel of the telecom hub door, the stolen Glock a lead weight in his good hand. The suppressed shot from the operator in the corridor had been a punctuation mark. The hunt was now an open war. The fire suppression timer in his head blazed. T-0430. The kill cycle in the safe room was still active. Even if he escaped this floor, if that room ignited, the entire building would lock into a full-blown emergency purge. He'd be trapped in a burning hive. He swiped the stolen keycard. A red light blinked. Access denied. Tier 3. Clearance required. He dropped to a knee beside the door's relay panel, ignoring the throbbing in his shoulder. With his multi-driver, he popped the cover, exposing a nest of wires. He bypassed the electronic lock with a jumper clip from his tool belt, sending a manual override signal. The magnetic lock disengaged with a heavy clunk. He slid inside, into the hum and chill of the telecom hub. Rows of server racks stood like black monoliths, their LEDs blinking in silent patterns. The air smelled of ozone and dust. Voices echoed in the corridor outside, getting closer. A 2-man sweep. Ethan moved silently to a ladder, climbed into the ceiling space above the servers. The tiles were thin. He lay flat, breath held, as the hub door hissed open. 2 operators entered, moving in a practiced stack. Their suppressed carbines swept the room. "Clear left!" Moving right. They passed directly beneath him. The lead man's radio crackled. Hub status? Empty, proceeding to stairwell junction. As the second man passed, Ethan moved. He dropped, landing behind him, his left arm snaking around the man's neck in a tight blood choke. He used his body weight to pull him backward, cutting off sound and air. The man struggled, clawing at his arm, then went limp. Ethan lowered him silently to the floor. The lead operator turned at the soft rustle. "Mills?" Ethan was already on him. He drove the heel of his palm into the man's nose, a sharp, upward strike. Cartilage crunched. The operator gagged, stumbled back into a server rack. Ethan followed, a short, hard punch to the solar plexus. The man folded, gasping. A quick cable tie around his wrists, another around his ankles, a strip of duct tape over his mouth. He searched the second man, found an encrypted smartphone. The screen was locked, but a live app was running in the foreground. Black frame HVAC control, active containment. A building schematic glowed, showing the safe room pulsing red. Submenus displayed: thermal ramp, active; O2 scrub, active; suppression, pre-cycle, armed, 0358. They were watching the assassination in real time. He plugged the phone into a hub terminal via USB, hoping for cached credentials. The system pinged. A login bypass, a terrible security flaw for a Black Ops cell, but a lifeline for him. He accessed the containment protocol menu. Manual override, yes or no. He selected yes. A progress bar filled slowly. Disabling thermal protocol, 40%. An alarm shrieked from the phone itself, a shrill, electronic warble. A notification flashed: override attempt detected, alerting field command. Outside, the corridor erupted with shouted commands. Hub! He's in the hub! Breach it! The progress bar crawled. 65%. A heavy thump hit the door. Then another. They were ramming it. Ethan stood, his breathing controlled but shallow. He dragged a heavy server rack in front of the door, wedging it against the handle. He yanked the emergency strobe light from the wall, ripped its wires free, and jury-rigged them to a metal conduit, creating a live, sparking trap near the door's opening arc. Override progress, 85%. A new sound, the sticky thwack of breaching putty being applied to the door's lock mechanism. He had to hold. 90%. The door exploded inward. A cloud of smoke and splinters filled the doorway. The first operator charged through, weapon up. Ethan was ready. He swung the fire extinguisher like a battering ram, the base connecting with the man's sternum. A sickening crunch. The operator crumpled, choking. A second man pushed through the smoke. Ethan pulled the extinguisher's pin and fired a full blast of white chemical foam into his face. The man screamed, blinded, clawing at his eyes. Ethan shoulder-charged him into a server rack. The man's head snapped back against the metal frame. He slid down, unconscious. Override, 98%. But he was no longer invisible. And in his pocket, a stolen drive hummed with secrets, a ghost of the system that had tried to erase him. The math was done. For now. Silence returned to the telecom hub. Cooling electronics hummed. Men groaned where they had fallen. Ethan stood at the center of it, his breathing steady. He took inventory. Left shoulder, a shallow gunshot graze, muscle damage, joint functional, blood seeped through fabric and fell to the tile at a steady rate. Ribs, bruised, pain on inhale. Left forearm, superficial slash. He dragged the heaviest unconscious body to the doorway and wedged it against the frame. The door held. He slid down beside a dead server rack and stripped off the soaked jacket. He widened the tear in his sleeve with his teeth and looped his belt high on the arm, cinching until the bleeding slowed. The room steadied, a sound behind the racks. A woman crouched low, shaking. He pushed the cleaner jacket toward her with his foot. "Sit," he said. "Breathe." She obeyed. The alarm tone shifted. An intercom voice announced security response and identification procedures. Ethan stood, retrieved the fallen pistol, cleared it, and set it aside. Footsteps, commands. The room filled with uniforms and light. He complied without resistance, answered questions with his name and credentials, said little else. His story remained procedural and complete. An EMT dressed the wound. He was wrapped in foil, issued paperwork, and released through a service exit as the building emptied itself. Outside, the night was cold and loud. Ethan reached his van and sat without moving. After a moment, he tightened the bandage, started the engine, and pulled into traffic. He dropped the crushed SIM fragments into an empty cup holder. The system had run its process. He had survived it. That would have to do.